Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Kevin, Legend by Aviations. No context needed for this one. We're just going to dive straight in and see what Aviations is bringing to the table today. Got some detuning, kind of getting eerie. What are we, like 10 seconds in? You already feel the prog. Yeah, it gets really funky in there, but that's all 4/4. Yeah, I love that push and pull. That final bar of that 4-bar phrase was just stretch, speed through. So good. Love this dude's voice too. The piano's a nice touch. Yeah, metric modulation is definitely a major aspect of this track. The syncopated accents always coming just after a beat. Dude, that bass tone is smooth. That layering on the vocals. Yeah, dude, always delaying. Those falsettos are so clean. Yeah, it's still playing with time. You know what's crazy is the chord progression reminds me of Goat by Polyphia. Yeah, arpeggiation. The guitar would be doing full sweeps right there, but the pianist is just tearing it up. Yeah, I've mostly been praising everyone else, but that snare work in that last fast section was really impressive. Have we had aviations on the channel before? I think so, a very long time ago. Yeah, dude. Oh my. I thought we were done. I thought we were done. Noodly for noodly sake. There at the end. I'm not gonna say I didn't like that ending, but I think a lot of the song had a strong pacing to it, strong element of pacing, um, with a good mix between shreddy ideas and showing off skill versus building atmosphere, and sometimes blending the two, finding that fine line between the two extremes. And there at the end, it just went full on into skill based musicianship. Not that that's a bad thing, but I don't think it elevated the song. It was just a moment to shred a little bit more, and especially since we had that fake out ending, everything else felt tacked on. At least to me, you're welcome to have your own opinion on it. Um, I think if we hadn't have had the fake out, I don't know that I would have had that feeling. It would have just been the ramping up of intensity, and to finish the song off on the highest point, that would have been fine. But the fake out makes the rest, it changes the context of it. And to me, it feels like additional stuff that maybe should have hit the cutting room floor. If they wanted to go with that ending there at 30 seconds to go, that real sharp cutoff. Um, yeah, just fantastic track though. Like I said, have we done aviations before? It helps to spell correctly. Yes, we did Outliers. Judging by this thumbnail a very long time ago. March 2021. It has been 2 years since we've had aviations on the channel. Yeah, I need to get into them. It says amazing Genti. Did I write Genti? Yeah, amazing Genti pop with a focus on brightness. This could not be farther. I mean, this is still Genti music, but this is very proggy. Definitely not Genti pop, which I'm assuming was something closer to what Unprocessed ended up doing, or maybe even some of Periphery's brighter tracks, especially stuff off of P3, I might call Genti pop, with a focus on brightness. And this is not that. This is filled with tension. Um, and eeriness and complexity. Yeah, so in the same realm, but almost the exact opposite of the first time I heard them. This really grabbed my attention. So let's get into what this is going on. The big thing that I want to focus on is metric modulation. It is everywhere. The entire song is in 4/4, and this is a trend I'm seeing a lot now. In the last, I don't know, 10 years maybe, is really taking 4/4 and putting unusual rhythms over it, but keeping a core groove in the background. It's possible that this is an older trend than that, but I'm really seeing a lot of it now. Um, and this, I mean, right here, we hear so many different grooves where the accents are way far away from the 2 and 4 backbeat that we're getting on the cymbals. But because we have that 2 and 4 backbeat on the cymbals, because it is in 4/4, and because usually the drums gives us that 4/4 feeling, we can just, nod our head along with the music, no matter what weird things the vocalist and the pianist and the guitars are doing, or even an aspect of the drummer, there is still one limb giving us that 4/4 for us to key into and find that groove. So we get the really eclectic rhythmic stuff we would expect from prog metal, but we don't feel like we're being tossed around and jumbled around a metric clothes dryer. It's a weird metaphor, Brian. Where do you come up with this stuff? You can always find that grounding, that rooting, so you never feel too lost in the music as much as it tries to buck you off. And I think that's why it's becoming very popular. Um, Through that, though, we end up hearing a lot of polymetric ideas, polyrhythmic ideas, just any way that they can push against that 4/4, it's here, despite still using the 4-bar phrase, which is the most important aspect. I think if they went farther out, 8 bars might be okay, but if you start pushing towards 16, then you're in Meshuggah territory. And that's where it's more difficult to find that core groove, because it's going to take that much longer until we hit a downbeat or an accented beat on 1 again. Having the 4-bar phrase makes it very palatable, because even if you get lost, you're only 15, 20 seconds away from getting that downbeat again and finding that home once more. Again, heightened palatability definitely makes it more approachable, which will also bring people towards it. People who don't necessarily listen to prog stuff or might like proggy rhythms but not like feeling lost. It just kind of gives that whole thing more of a mainstream appeal, which is going to bring in more listeners, which is going to make it popular, and then the trope gets built. Right? Once again, iterative design is iterative because it works, and this is the process of making something from uh, a niche sound, iterating on it, building it, developing it into something a bit more palatable, creating a mainstream sound, people copying that or building off of it, and creating the trope. Right? That's how things happen. That's exactly where we are here with this track. We have a very iterative sound with this polyrhythmic 4/4, and it absolutely works. I love it. Um, it is groovy. It's fun to listen to. There's a little bit of a puzzle to it. If you don't care for the puzzle, you can just groove with it. I love it. Now, this is also paired with a different metric modulation note, which is the squash and the stretch. There are so many sections in here where we speed up, not by changing the tempo, but by changing the frequency of notes, or slow down. Again, not by changing the tempo, but by reducing the number of notes we get. Usually by working with frequently triplets, because if we just have, so here's our quarter note, ba, ba, ba. So if we double it, we get eighth notes, ba, 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 ba. That definitely feels faster, but it feels congruent. I think that's the word I want, with the quarter notes, because it's just a doubling of time. And same thing if we have it into half notes, ba, ba, but it's slower than our quarter notes, but it's half as slow. It feels perfectly in line with it. So most of the time we don't perceive those as tempo shifts. Usually have to ramp it up faster, which is where we can either move to 16th notes if we want it to be really fast, or if we want to slow down, we usually move towards tuplets because that changes our time feel, which really makes it feel like we have changed tempos. And we have a lot of tuplet work in here, both on the speeding up and the slowing down. Both of those, tuplets really allow the feeling of a tempo shift without actually changing the tempo in a way that simply doubling or halving your note length doesn't really achieve. And so we have many, many sections like this. If you've ever felt like the song was rushing and then dragging, and then we were back to a normal sound, then we were rushing again, then we were back to a normal sound, then dragging, I guarantee you the tempo never changes. 4/4 never changes. 4-bar phrases never change. There isn't a moment where we add a fifth bar in there to lengthen the bar out and stretch that out a little bit. Almost everything is done. And I say almost because I only heard the song once. It's possible that I missed something. But almost every time it is purely just changing how many notes you hear at a time and the whole band moving on this in a way that feels like the tempo or the time signature. In fact, I remember that we did have one tempo change closer to the end. So yeah, it's not every time that it's an illusion. There are some times when the tempo does change, but for the most part, especially if you hear the tempo shift for just a couple of seconds, metric modulation, not tempo modulation. And this is really the bread and butter of the song. Almost every section of this track can be broken down into that genty syncopated rhythms, the polyrhythmic stuff, and the metric modulation. 95% of the song can be explained by that. Now, the other half of the song, or the other portion of the song I want to talk about is the atmosphere, which I feel is the other strong portion of the track. They achieved this through some really great chord progressions, not just in isolation, not like the 4 chords that they chose for the verse, but how they choose to expand this song from section to section to section, expanding the atmosphere of it. Almost every section is primarily eerie in some capacity. There is this overwhelming darkness, this creeping off on the periphery that is present throughout all of this track. But it's not the same, we're going to call it darkness, in every section. There's variations to that harmonic context that allow every section to retain that overall dark feel, that eeriness, while not becoming stale over the course of the track. And this is one place where my ears fail me a little bit. I wish I was a lot better at picking out harmonic sounds, being able to call out chords even. So I could hear specifically, or I should say know specifically, how they're changing things up. But, every section has its own little identity to it. And it's fascinating to hear the song evolve metrically, rhythmically, that idea, and hearing how they change up the groove in each of the sections, but also how each one feels, oppressively evil in its own right, distinct from the section that came before it or the section that came after it. And so they find a lot of ways to bring contrast into the track in their two main compositional styles, which is the harmonic resonance and the metric ideas. And I think that's one of the things that really draws me to them is the constant changes. There's always something new happening, even in the things that feel like they're static. And I find that really interesting. The last thing I want to touch on before we hit the lyrics is just the raw musicianship here. The vocalist, his voice is gold. He's got like 2 different styles of vocals, maybe 3. And then the harsh on top of it's got that pretty standard modern metalcore harsh. All of it is both performed exceptionally well, and the producer really knows how to pull the specific color out of his voice and showcase his unique sound on it. Just gorgeous stuff all over. The guitarists, both the electric and bassist, are just sick. The bass tone is beautiful. Get some really nice bass lines on that. The guitarists are very skilled. Both at, I'm going to assume the guitarists figure out the chord progressions. Maybe the pianist does. But figuring out how the song's supposed to flow, putting the riffs on it, and performing them. Some of these sections are a bit easier than others, but the song as a whole is definitely not beginner friendly. And then the pianist is just a beast on that piano. There were some really neat ideas there at the beginning. I was, this is a good pianist. But then just that 3 octave, 4 octave maybe arpeggiation, one hand, just like gliding across the piano. Golly, I mean, just the whole band is. Oh, and the drummer, like I kind of mentioned that at the end. I haven't really talked too much about the drummer, but the polyrhythmic stuff is phenomenal. And then there's also the fills and some of the more melodic patterns as well. The drummer wasn't always just being a metronome. They actually had some really nice melodic ideas throughout. And just the ability to control time, really harness it, and manipulate it for the rest of the band to play on top of. It's just, yeah, the band's just solid. I'm kind of upset that I didn't get into them 2 years ago when I was introduced to them. I remember enjoying the song, but not being enthralled by it. And this song tells me I need to listen to more. Maybe it's just this album. Maybe that album wouldn't have hit me as hard. Maybe that song was fairly indicative of their sound at the time. But this proggy gent, this is what I'm here for. With the gorgeous poppy style vocals, which I don't think the vocal has changed much. I vaguely remember the Aviations track. Like, I don't remember specifics. It's just, general tags. Poppy vocals, genty guitar work, great drumming, just little tidbits I can file away. um, but yeah, I gotta listen to more of this. Let's do some lyrics. So, yeah, these are a bit, they go over my head just a little bit. On the surface read, though, is somebody struggling with an inner demon. When they look in the mirror, they see soulless eyes and the skies have blackened. But there's a will to move on. It starts out, says, I will thrive in the toughest of restraints. There's another line. Actually, what's really interesting too is that the chorus comes back. We hear it 3 times, but each one is different. They all start the same with feel his gaze. But after that, they all kind of take their own directions, sometimes making minor variations, just maybe one word in a line, and sometimes going in completely different ideas. We'll come back to the chorus in a second, though. Another line later says, I didn't read the fine print of this poison ingested. Oh God, I've regressed. So it's really, at least it seems to me that this demon inside, again, surface level, it could be a metaphor for something. But it's something that they invited into their body, right? They took a poison and this is what it's doing to them. And they might have done it for, well, the very last line is, this was meant for you. So I'm curious if they corrupted themselves in hopes that it would help somebody else. And maybe that somebody else doesn't care, or maybe things didn't work out and now they're left alone and corrupted. I don't know exactly if that's what's supposed to be going on here, but that's really all that we hear about the exterior. Most of the track seems to be about this internal struggle between the self and the demon and the corruption. And I use the word demon simply because it's utilized in here multiple times. Again, it's probably more metaphorical than an actual possession by a demon, but yeah, it is the word that's utilized many times. It's my inner demons. Going along with the eerie music that we have in the track, we also have allusions to ghosts and graves. One of the opening lines even speaks directly about their bones. It says, "Cold and crystalline, my bones have been through worse." There's a lot of ways to say that you've seen tougher times, but keeping with the general spookiness. That's a word I meant to say in the reaction and never quite landed on. It kind of has like it's not a demonic song. I keep saying the word eerie and evil, but that's not really what the vibe is. It's more spooky, right? It's got a little bit of fun to it in the sense that there's a safety. And I think that's interesting because it reminds me more of scary music in a Disney film more than scary music made by, some extreme metal bands, right? Or scary music in a, R-rated horror film. Something that has the audience or knows that the audience is going to be able to handle. Whereas this has a bit more of a G-rated spookiness to it. Which doesn't undercut the story at all, but I think it actually adds to the personality of the song, um, and works well for what they're doing. They don't really seem to be I mean, they do go creepy, eerie, right, in the breakdown, which I completely forgot to talk about, but more modulation going on there. But for the most part, it's more of a spooky sound. But yeah, going with the idea of my bones have been through worse, really going for that Disney style creepy lyric idea. But like I said, I like it. It keeps the tone of everything proper between the music and the lyrics. Um, I still don't exactly know what the song is about. Like I said, I still think that's a surface read. The dude did something, corrupted himself. The reason he did it is basically null and void now, and they're left with the corruption and nothing to show for it. And there's an inner struggle every day. I mean, this could be a metaphor for so much. I don't think the idea of having demons within you or actually ingesting poison are what the song is about. But beyond recognizing the metaphor exists, I don't have a strong read on what the song is particularly trying to say, but I've enjoyed it nonetheless, and I kind of hope you have too. Primarily because I really dug this song, and I like it when people enjoy the music they listen to alongside me. I think it's always a fun experience when everybody can get something out of a track, even if it's not their usual jam, though this is pretty close to my usual jam. Those are my thoughts on Aviations' Legend. I hate having to put a possessive on a name that ends with S. It's just really awkward to say. Aviations' Legend. Let me know your thoughts, comments, perspectives, opinions, and takes down in the comment section. Above that, if you could, head into the description box, click the link for Linktree, find my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. There's a ton of stuff in there. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.